What Elon Musk is doing, in my view, is plainly illegal.
I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Did Joe Biden have staff at the White House? And how many of those staff members were elected? I'm sorry, can I ask a question? Did Joe Biden have staff at the White House? And how many of those staff members were elected?
Well, but Scott, Elon
zero.
Musk
The answer is zero. Every president appoints people to do things for them. To call him unelected is like the most naive and ridiculous talking point I've ever heard.
Scott, I can't believe you would believe something like this, because if this was Joe Biden allowing for a billionaire,
allowing people who weren't elected to run the country for the last 4 years, yeah, I would believe that, actually.
I will say the politics of this are quite good. 72% of Americans want an agency dedicated to efficiency. 60% say DOGE is helping. 69% support cutting $1 trillion from the federal budget, and 70% believe there is waste, fraud, and inefficiency in the government. So this is an issue that people know is a problem, and they, I think, are giving Trump some political leash to go out and solve it.
The reason why I wanted to do this interview is to explain one thing to your viewers. The overall objectives and the goals and the general policies behind what's been happening is approved of, but the language and the communication, the messaging is over the top. And the public understands that these are real people with real families and real concerns. They're not seeking chaos. They're seeking an orderly change of the way things are. The Democrats are wrong by talking about resistance, because the public doesn't want resistance.
You understand the scale of the threat, and you have ideas about how to interrupt what feels like something that we have not experienced since the Civil War in terms of the threat to our republic.
He goes in and fires people, terminates programs, causes immense harm to people who have been working for years for this country, patriotic Americans, and to the Americans who receive these services. And then he says, oh, whoops, I made a mistake. That's completely unacceptable and should be unacceptable to anyone who loves this country.
And yet, Kevin, you've got a full tooth grin. Why?
Because my cohort's full of crap. He has no executional mandate. He can't do anything he just said. He is just simply observing, pointing out, and letting the American people know what he's found. And if you don't like it, okay, that's all right. But he does not have the ability to do what Congress has, to execute on his recommendations.
They have more work to do. And one of the things I actually think they could do is, over time, collect all their results, all their findings, all the things that they've uncovered, and actually go up to Congress and work with Congress on a hearing where they could maybe make a presentation to the people's representatives. I think that would be good practice and good politics.
And they would actually have to do that legally, because they can't just cut things with that.
I think that would be fine.
This guy is just pointing out what every American wants to know. If you're making $68,000 sitting at your kitchen, which is the average American, watching this kind of waste, you're pissed. You're really pissed.
So, Scott, is the Trump administration at risk of overstepping with these efforts?
Well, I don't think they're at risk of overstepping with the American people. I think part of the election result was the American people actually asking for a sledgehammer to the federal government. I mean, trust in government was low, dissatisfaction with the government was low, dissatisfaction with the previous administration was low, and dissatisfaction was high with politicians who for years have said, I'm going to cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and never seem to do it. So I like Representative Maliotokis, but with all due respect, I don't think the voters are wanting a scalpel. I do think they're wanting larger implements like a sledgehammer or a chainsaw.
I think that's longer true. I think that's no longer true, Scott. Honestly, you're seeing the polling, and you're seeing how unpopular.
And Donald Trump has a better than 50% approval rating. I have seen the polling.
And you see how unpopular Elon Musk is, how unpopular DOGE is, and beyond that, there is a real concern about the kinds of
You know what I love about you, Lulu, is that you get to say what you want to say, and then you got to say what you think I ought to say. Why don't you just let me finish my point here? The point, Wolf, is this. The American people asked for a different direction, and what they did not ask for was a continuation of the status quo.
What Elon Musk is doing, in my view, is plainly illegal. He's trying to take the legs out from under, with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Congress passes the laws. We have an agency. The agency has obligations, legal obligations that it has to meet. Under the Constitution, it is the responsibility of the administration to administer those laws. And if they fail to do that or do it inappropriately, it is the responsibility of the courts to make them do it.
I have an idea for them. Why don't they cut the $15 billion that Musk has received in federal funding? I mean, if
what would you like to cut specifically?
I would.
Him rescuing our astronauts, giving internet to Ukraine.
No, no. He's not rescuing our.
Hold on. So Elon's programs are fine, but everybody else's programs.
No, she said she wants to cut him out of the government. He does a lot of important things. I'm just asking what you want to get rid of. We need a space program, I think.
We're not talking about a space program. I'm talking about how Elon Musk, the wealthiest person in the world, is in the federal government making decisions about grants and about funding whenever he benefits from those things. He has people in a number of government agencies, yes, it is true, including the FBI, in order to find ways to gain grants and to make more money. And are you okay with that? Is that something you're okay with? You're for cutting. You're for cutting, but you're not for cutting Musk.
I think you're full of it. B,
no, I'm not full of it. I have sources at the FBI.
He provides all sorts of services to the government.
Just a second.
You just denigrated Bongino's law enforcement credentials. He was a cop and a Secret Service agent. You denigrated his academic credentials. He has a master's degree.
Just because he was a police officer doesn't make him qualified to run a 38,000-person, $11 billion budget agency, just like Pete Hegseth.
But you know what does? Because he
National Guardsman or whatever he was doesn't either. Thank you for your service.
The confidence and the pleasure of the president. Not yet over the outcome of the election.
No,
in our system,
look at what's happening to our country. And I'll never be over it, Scott. This is dismantling our democracy in front of our eyes, and you guys are okay with it.
You had a city that was smaller than the amount of people that live on this block, and he was the Secretary of Transportation. You had the guy who was stealing luggage. I mean, I think anyone who's defending the Biden administration.
But this is the FBI.
So?
Okay.
Yeah, and this is someone who has a career in law enforcement for many years.
Does Dan Bongino have the qualifications to be the second person in charge of the FBI?
Yes, he has law enforcement, he has academic, and again, let me just stress this. I've mentioned this before.
You stack up
they
his
serve at the
credentials
pleasure of the president. That's the political appointment.
I know that is the answer to every question, is that Donald Trump wants it, so therefore it is good.
For political appointments, yes.
But when we look at, we're talking about people who are qualified and not, and you look at his resume and compare it to Republican and Democrat nominees for that same position, is he qualified?
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm not sure all the people that have been appointed in the past have covered themselves in glory. I mean, some of them have done a terrible job and gotten in lots of trouble.
For years, although we did both block each other on Twitter, it got pretty heated years ago. Look, Trump likes figures right out of central casting, and Bongino fits the bill. He became a big star on Fox News during the first Trump term. He was saying all the things Trump wanted to hear, including denigrating the FBI. You know, he's a macho figure, someone who's out there trying to pick fights and stoke fights. And that's the thing about Bongino. The incentives for television and radio and podcasting are very different than the incentives for government service. You know, Bongino was incentivized to throw punches, to channel people's rage and resentments, to stoke fears, to promote conspiracy theories, including Trump's theories about the 2020 election. He was a big pusher of the big election lies in 2020. Those were the incentives for Bongino at Fox, and then later on the radio, on podcasts, at Rumble, a right-wing video website. Those are just very different incentives.
You can't be surgically precision. There's no way to be surgically precision in this. You have to cut more because you just don't know. There's no way to do it. Remember, we've never audited government for 100 years. Never done this before. You may not like it.
Tom doesn't think that's right. Tom, what's your reaction to that? The government's not audited.
Every agency of the federal government, it helps to know some things if we're going to have this debate. Every agency of the federal government is audited by independent inspectors general. USAID was audited over 60 times last year. And one of the first things that Donald Trump and Elon Musk did was to fire all of the inspectors general. They fired the auditors, and they put in charge this billionaire with his 50 child interns who know absolutely nothing about the federal government. And Kevin, like what you're talking about, it might work for a company that makes widgets, because we can do without the company that makes widgets for a few months while you get in there and you restructure it. You can't do that to the FAA unless people aren't going to fly in planes for the next 4 or 5 months. You can't do that to the Defense Department unless you don't want to defend this country for the next 4 or 5 months. It's ridiculous that we're even having this argument, and I'm someone who believes there is waste in government and there are ways to get at it, but not by firing everybody first, shutting things down while you investigate. Do the investigation, work with Congress, work with these employees, do it right. It's been done before.